Okay, so here we are live once again. Let me make sure my camera's working. Give me just a couple of seconds for that to come up there on my phone. How's everyone doing today? I hope everyone's doing well. It says it's waiting for me, but I'm here. I don't know what we're waiting on. There we go. All right. Just making sure everything's running okay. So today I've got to open up for you Sergeant Slaughter and Felix Mercer Stratton. There's a portrait of both these guys on the back. This is figure set 173 in the G.I. Joe classified line. Here are the Sarge and Mercer on the back here. You got a little bit of a close up on what I'm pretty sure would be Mercer's tattoos, but we'll have a closer look at those later. Couple of different covers, as they say in military parlance, for Sergeant Slaughter. You got the Marine utility cover and a red beret. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit, obviously. And there's some a bullet belt for some kind of weapon. So this design of Sergeant Slaughter is interesting. I think they were trying to get some extra use out of the heavy duty mold, which I haven't opened up heavy duty yet, but I do hope to get that figure soon. And then we can open them up. Got a lot of accessories for this guy. Got a lot of accessories for both of these guys. So we're going to get into all that. That felt like a hiccup. I hope I don't have the hiccups. I hate the hiccups. So this is the third version of Sergeant Slaughter that we've seen in the classified line so far. Action Force put out a Sergeant Slaughter figure, and I wound up buying it because I'm like, well, it looks like Hasbro isn't going to get the rights to Sergeant Slaughter this time around since Action Force has them. But then they did do a G.I. Joe classified Sergeant Slaughter. And I like the Action Force version. I like this version. I think they're both pretty good. Blue White Mario is here and says, "Hi, Alan." Hi, Blue White Mario. Good to see you. So they did this version, and they did a repaint of this version in the Slaughter's Marauders colors, where he had a blue tank top, among other differences. But this is as he appeared in the 1980s G.I. Joe cartoon, and the Triple T tank came with the figure in this color scheme. And I kind of expected if they did another Sergeant Slaughter figure, it would probably be the mail away version, where he had the black pants with the red, white, and blue stripes, and the olive shirt with USA across the front of it. But we didn't get that one. Instead, we got this one, which is not based on one of the vintage figures at all. Although it is kind of reminiscent of the one that came with the Warthog. It's not that version. This is a version. I looked it up on Yo Joe because I remembered seeing it. So I looked it up on yojo.com. This is based on Sergeant Slaughter version 5, which came out in 2006. It was a convention exclusive because at that time, that was the only way they could do a Sergeant Slaughter figure. And that one was mostly a repaint of Gung Ho. So I guess if you wanted to do an easy custom Gung Ho, it was the version 3 or version 4 Gung Ho. It was Battle Corps Gung Ho. If you wanted to do an easy custom of that, he'd be a good base for it. So yeah, that's what this version of Sergeant Slaughter is based off of. Blue White Mario says, "I got a profile picture. I was ready for the New Year's Day." Well, cool. Yep, I can see it. It's really tiny on my screen, but I'll take a better look at it once I'm done with the video. Let's see. So then we got Mercer, and Mercer was one of the Renegades, which was a sub-faction that were kind of supposed to be like G.I. Joe's equivalent of the Dreadnoks. The Dreadnoks were really popular in the 1980s, so it just seems like it's the sort of thing where somebody was like, hey, kids like the Dreadnoks, what if we did like a G.I. Joe equivalent of the Dreadnoks? And we'll tie him in with Sergeant Slaughter, because kids love Sergeant Slaughter, and we're certainly paying that guy for his likeness rights. So Lone Dragon is here and says, "I have come here to chew bubble ass and kick gum." Well, good luck with that. So I think that's everything on this package we really need to look at. We can go ahead and open it up. So, but yeah, the Renegades appeared in the animated GI Joe movie, and Mercer was the one that I thought was the most interesting character-wise, because the idea behind him was he was supposed to be a Cobra Viper who had defected and joined the GI Joe team, and you can see he's wearing a vest that looks kind of similar to what you think of a Viper is wearing somewhat, but you can see his Cobra insignia has like a Ghostbusters kind of thing over it. I say Ghostbusters rather than the universal no symbol because you can see that it's got the slash facing the wrong way. The universal no symbol is supposed to have the slash facing in the direction that would make it look like a letter N, but with Ghostbusters, they reversed it because it just looked better that way. And I'm guessing they were doing this as more of a Ghostbusters reference than anything else. There's this stupid little paper thing with the legalese that I don't pay no attention to. If I wind up choking on this, it's my own problem, isn't it? So, and then you can see the insert has got the GI Joe Star and Stripes logo on there. Doesn't seem to come with figure stands. Really should start having all the figures come with figure stands. And I'm not sure how tall Mercer is going to be next to your average G.I. Joe figure, but I've got some other G.I. Joe figures over here. And man, is it going to be a pain in the ass for me to take all this stuff out of here on Sergeant Slaughter's head without losing anything. And it looks like his hat got a little warped. But we got a submachine gun. We got, okay, so that's what these, it looks like it's a grenade launcher type thing. I figured they looked like pretty big shells, but I couldn't quite figure out what it is. We got kind of an M16 type rifle. We got a couple of knives. I'm going to have to figure out what all goes with what. We got some kind of weapon over here that looks like some kind of funky laser gun of some kind. And he's got a submachine gun, automatic rifle kind of thing. And Bobby Wallet is here and says, I really like the options we got with Sergeant Slaughter. I do too. And we're gonna get into talking about all that. This appears to be a new head sculpt. It's based on the previous head sculpt. I'm pretty sure this is the previous head sculpt here. But it's got the whistle like stuck in the mouth. And I don't know if these sunglasses are gonna be removable. But we might be able to put the sunglasses onto the other Sarge figure, and we might not. But I'm gonna figure all that out as we get into it. So let me start trying to take some of these accessories out of here. And it looks like his swagger stick, and this what looks to me to be a suppressor, kind of a square-barreled suppressor. I believe that's what that is. We'll go ahead and pull those out. And then we got this hand cannon, which the Action Force Sergeant Slaughter that I was talking about before, he also had a rather large revolver that came with him. And it's really cool looking, but unfortunately the barrel's kind of warped on mine. Lone Dragon says, I just want some damn glasses that fit Buzzer. Yeah, I wound up gluing them on. I glued the glasses onto Buzzer. So, God, somebody's told me before what this one's called, this particular submachine gun, like the Vector or something like that. It's a really cool one. I have some of the G.I. Joe Retaliation. This came with a bunch of G.I. Joe Retaliation figures, and it's the one I like to use with my Retaliation Snake Eyes. Not the actual movie version, but the first one they put out, where it looked more like they were doing like a Tim Bradstreet Snake Eyes figure, especially if you have all the web gear on him. He looks a lot like Tim Bradstreet's Snake Eyes. The head sculpt is obviously a Tim Bradstreet Snake Eyes, but I think he looks really cool with this particular weapon. So that's the one I usually keep with that Snake Eyes. And then this thing is like I said, this to me is like, it's like a little mini grenade launcher, looks like, but it also looks kind of like a shotgun. It looks kind of like Flint's shotgun that came with the first classified Flint, but it looks like you see what I'm talking about? It looks like a shotgun on steroids, like a big muscled up shotgun that shoots grenades. So that's pretty cool. I like that weapon. That would be a good weapon to give to Gung Ho also. So yeah, if you took the I think if you took the vintage card Gung Ho head and put him onto this body, and I guess you'd probably want to put on some different legs or repaint the pants or something. But that would get you started towards doing a Battle Core Gung Ho figure if you want to do a custom with that. So we got the utility cover. And speaking of Gung Ho, I believe this is the same one that came with him, but now it's molded in tan plastic, and it's got like a little patch on there, which isn't quite a Marine Corps patch, but you know, a lot of people make a big thing about how like Bob Remus, the wrestler that you know uses the ring name and persona and everything of Sergeant Slaughter, was not actually in the Marines. And like some people would even go so far as to say stolen valor, but no, he's an entertainer. He's playing a character, you know. Like I know there's a lot of kayfabe, and you're supposed to pretend, like as a wrestler, especially back in the old days, that a lot of that stuff is real. But you know, it's not quite the same thing as actually pretending to be. I mean, he's pretending to be a Marine, but he's not really like pretending to be a Marine. You know, there's supposed to be a level of disconnect there, like a suspension of disbelief. He wasn't like trying to get medals and shit and trying to get benefits and all that kind of stuff is what I'm saying. So he wasn't trying to take any actual credit as being any kind of veteran or anything like that. It was a character he was playing. So, and then we got this red beret. You know, I'm going to have more to say about this in a little bit, but I don't really have any like nearby, I don't think, to compare this with. But I would not be surprised if this is a beret that's been reused for something, like if it's say, you know, Lieutenant Falcon's beret, just recolored. So we're going to set that aside. And then we got the extra head. And like I said, I don't want to take the glasses and the hat off of this guy because I don't want to have to deal with that, getting it back on just right. But I'm pretty sure this is the same head sculpt as the original Sergeant Slaughter. So that's that one. And now for the really challenging part, which is I want to try to get this stuff out of here without making the hat fly across the room or something. Oh wait, we got one more accessory. So we got this the M16 looking machine gun. This is M16 looking rifle, you know. This is, I'm pretty sure, the same one that came with a leather neck, just colored differently again. So I'm going to try to get this out of here without making this hat fly across the room or anything like that. Since they did package it with the hat on the head, I would rather they did not do that. But here we go. And the hat did get a little warped in the packaging, unfortunately. I'll have to almost make it a little more like a cowboy hat, the way it's all bent up in the back. So I'll have to try to straighten that out with a hairdryer later. And then I'm not sure how well these sunglasses are going to be stuck on. So I'm being really careful as I pull those out. And it looks to me as if yep, that's a separate piece. So you can take those off. And here's a closer look at the head sculpt with the whistle there. And obviously, since you know, it's got the cord on there, the whistle goes down around the neck and everything like that. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. And we can put the more standard sort of head on there. Let's have a look at him real quick with the utility cover. And that almost looks like a Gung Ho figure, doesn't it? With the hat and everything. But of course, like I said, that Battle Core Gung Ho, he didn't have a hat. He had a headband. So you'd want to use that retro card Gung Ho head and I guess make a headband yourself, like use a piece of elastic or something maybe. So he's got the belt actually looks like it's part of the trunk piece, which is unusual. And then he's got a holster over here for his hand cannon. And he's got a sheath over here for his knife. There's a couple of knives in here. So I guess one of those goes to Sarge. I'm going to guess it's the bigger knife since that's closer to his side. Oh, it's taped in. I got to get that out. And we do have some extra hands in here that are for Sarge. Sarge has bare hands, and Mercer has fingerless gloves on his hands. So that's how we know that all these extra hands are for Sarge. But we got a gripping hand. So he's got a solid... On the figure, he's got a gripping hand on his left hand and a solid fist on his right hand. And then we've got a gripping hand for his right hand, a solid fist for his left hand, a pointing hand for his right hand. You know, I like that. No, wait, that's a saluting hand. Well, I like those two. And then more solid fist hands. Why does he have so many solid fist hands? Why does he have a whole extra set of solid fist hands? Maybe that is supposed to be for Mercer, and he just takes off his gloves before he balls up his fists. How's that supposed to work? Anyway, so these glasses are really small, and I never really trust them on figures, so I'm going to be really careful while I display this. But here he is with the glasses. And of course, if you put the Sergeant Slaughter hat on him, the Smokey Bear hat, that does kind of pinch the arms of the glasses, or ideally it should pinch the arms of the glasses between the ears and the hat. And that's how I usually like to keep Sergeant Slaughter, because I don't want to lose those glasses. And you can see, like, now they're staying on really well. So that's good. But yeah, we'll go ahead and look at them with the utility cover. And that kind of does the same thing, but not quite as well as the hat, probably because it doesn't have a brim on it. But just so you can see what it looks like with the utility cover and the glasses. There's that. And then finally, I want to get into this. The beret. And, you know, maybe some of you younger viewers out there, the beret actually kind of holds it on pretty well too. Not as well as I would not as well as the big old hat, like I said, but still pretty well. I wish he'd come with 2 sets of glasses so I could just glue them onto each head. But, you know, whatever. So there he is with the glasses and the beret. And some of you younger viewers out there, if you came along after the 1990s, this won't have the same sort of the same sort of impact for you that it might for those of us who were around at the time. But during the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, the first time we went to war with Iraq, Vince McMahon came up with what I don't think was a very good idea in hindsight, and I didn't think it was a good idea at the time. Is he had the idea that he was going to have Sergeant Slaughter become an Iraqi sympathizer. And of course, that was during the time that Hasbro wound up dropping Sarge as a G.I. Joe tie-in character, because then he became a villain and a traitor to his country. And like, you know, I don't think it was very well thought out. Like, I get why you'd want to have like an Iraqi kind of villain, but why would you do it with Sergeant Slaughter of all people? Like why was that a thing? And I think it kind of ruined Bob Remus's career for a while. Eventually, people forgot about it, and people just remembered him as being, you know, the guy that tied in with G.I. Joe. But yeah, like for a while, he was just like the commissioner or something, and you just see him wearing like regular clothes, not wearing any kind of like ring costume at all. So, you know, he was still getting work, so that's good. But Vince did this guy dirty when he did that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I put that beret on him, and all of a sudden he's that Iraqi sympathizer version of Sergeant Slaughter. And I'm pretty sure that was the intention. I strongly suspect that the reason they put the beret into this set with Sarge was so that you could make a bad guy version of Sergeant Slaughter. So here is my headcanon. This is my explanation of Iraqi sympathizer Sergeant Slaughter. and how it fits in with my GI Joe universe is that I believe that what happened was at some point Sarge was captured by Cobra, and they put him into the brainwave scanner. You know, kind of like the ultimate MacGuffin. Anytime Larry needs to do something crazy, he pulls out that brainwave scanner that was invented way back in the early days of the comic by Dr. Venom, which shows you how early it was in the comics that it was invented, because Dr. Venom was still a character. That was his first appearance, actually, and he had Snake Eyes trapped into the brainwave scanner, and Snake Eyes managed to fake his own death, like fake that he was dead using various ninja mind control control of his own mind, not they could control other people's minds, but he was able to kind of basically put himself into a state of suspended animation and fool the sensors on this contraption into thinking he was dead, and then he was able to get out, because when they were taking his corpse out of the machine, when he sprung back to life and kicked all their asses. But yeah, I think what happened was they captured Sarge and they used the brainwave scanner to flip his brain around and make him into an Iraqi sympathizer to destroy his reputation. And that's the true story of how that happened in the G.I. Joe universe. Anyway, that's how Sarge wound up becoming a villain for a little bit, but eventually, you know, the Joes got him back and swapped his brain back around. So it was all fine, well, and good after that. So I'm gonna take the beret off of him, and I'm gonna take the glasses off of him very carefully, so I don't want to lose those. And we're going to talk a little bit about his articulation. So Sergeant Slaughter can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quickly from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Of course, this is a G.I. Joe classified figure, so it's got like an extra joint at the base of the neck, not just where the neck meets the head, but where the neck meets the shoulders. So you can get all kinds of different articulation out of them. Very nicely done. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the sides, and they raise up to the sides about that far. He's got the G.I. Joe butterfly joints on there like we typically see, and we can see this time they're kind of sculpted to have like the sleeves are torn off. And like I said, this is the same body as Heavy Duty. Arms can move back about that far and forward about that far. So they just got the colors done differently. But yeah, it's reusing the same torso as Heavy Duty, which does not have an ab crunch like some of them do, but it has more like this kind of 25th anniversary articulation here. So you can get a lot of good movement out of this. Lone Dragon says, so we need a Vince McMahon Cobra figure. Maybe he did have something to do with that. He is a pretty sinister fellow after all. We know this. Vince McMahon turned out to be a villain in real life. So yeah, got a bicep. Small bicep rotates all the way around. Got the double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. Now this wrist rotates all the way around, and the solid fist has a horizontal hinge on it. I'm gonna pull that off, and be careful when you pull those off, because these wristbands are removable, so you don't want to lose them. And I didn't take any of these hands out. I didn't even bother with that. But I'm going to take this other gripping hand out because I want him to have both of his gripping hands. There we go. And he doesn't seem to come with like a whistle that's a separate piece. He just has the whistle that's sculpted onto the head. I do really like that whistle that's sculpted onto the head. I think that's pretty cool. But it would be nice if he had like they had the piece already. They could have just molded some more of those. It's not like they had to do anything new. But yeah, like I suppose if you've got more than one Sergeant Slaughter like I do, that gives you more display options, even more display options. So you could put this whistle head on your version 1 Sergeant Slaughter, or your Slaughter's Marauders Sergeant Slaughter, and just swap around the hats and the glasses and all that kind of stuff, and just have them set up however you want. Okay, so then he does rotate all the way around at the waist. There we go. And that's got some wobble to it too. So it's almost like an 80s GI Joe figure, but it's not an O-ring. It's just a ball and a socket. Sergeant Slaughter does have the drop down hip articulation, but it doesn't seem to drop down as much as some of the other ones. Sergeant Slaughter can kick up about that far on his right leg, but his I noticed the web gear is kind of bumping into the pelvis a little bit. Oh, right leg can do a little bit further, but you can move those web gears around. That's fine. We can work around that. Got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. And he does have a boot cut, so the boot rotates all the way around. These are not, as you might suspect, the same legs that came with that original Sergeant Slaughter. I believe since the top part, I don't have heavy duty, like I said, I don't have them yet. But I think since the top part is heavy duty, probably the lower part is heavy duty too. And that's probably where that came from. Just get as much use out of that articulation or that body as you can, guys. So you got a boot cut, boot rotates all the way around. Foot points down about that far, foot points up about that far, and then the foot rotates all the way around where the foot meets the ankle. So there's that. All right. Now, let's talk some more about these accessories while we get them all geared up. So, I'm pretty sure all this stuff that was over here that I pulled out already goes with Sergeant Slaughter. And I could be mistaken about that. But honestly, looking at this weapon, and like I said, I do like this particular weapon. That one feels more like a Mercer weapon to me. I don't know if you would agree with me or not. But the great thing is, since, they're toys that I own and I can do whatever I want to with them, I can make this into a Mercer weapon. I can give this to Mercer and have that be his standard armament, and nobody can say a damn thing to me about it because I bought this thing, I had it delivered to my house, and I can do whatever I want to with it now. Whatever, I do what I want. Well, we'll go ahead and see what Sarge looks like while he's holding it, since I'm pretty sure that is technically supposed to be something that comes with him. And it's got the foregrip, so he can hold it two-handedly. So that's pretty cool. And I suppose this is what the suppressor is supposed to go onto, this kind of square-shaped, oblong kind of suppressor that the little piece of tape stuck to for whatever reason. Hiccups, man. I hate the hiccups. So that'll fit in the barrel here. And it seems like it fits a little loosely on mine, but I'm going to keep it straight up and down just to make sure I don't drop it. So, but I don't know if it can go on any. Let's see if it'll go maybe in the MS-16. If it's a little bit better in that one. So there you go. And I don't know if that's technically an M16, but I'm going to call it an M16 because it looks like what I remember them calling an M16 when I was a kid. Personally, I like to give Sergeant Slaughter, when I can, I like to give him an M60 because when he showed up in the comic book, he had an M60 as his weapon. And here's that funky grenade launcher, which is a pretty cool weapon. I like this one. So this might wind up being my standard armament for Sergeant Slaughter. And he's got this bullet bandolier around his torso, which seems to me to suggest that yeah, he would be using an M60, but he doesn't come with one, does he? So, but you've got other options as far as like if you want to give him an M60. Let's go ahead and have a look at him with the swagger stick, which, as I remember, the original Sergeant Slaughter, that's the only weapon he came with. And then I accidentally popped his leg off. So I'll just pop that right back on. So be careful with that. It does seem like it's a little softer than the usual G.I. Joe plastic there. But there he is with the swagger stick. So you can have him with the swagger stick and the head with the whistle in the mouth and the sunglasses and the Smokey Bear hat, and have him running some PT on the Renegades. Well, the one Renegade, since we only have one so far. But Lone Dragon says, I'm thinking about ordering the two-headed ogre and human muscle model figures right now. Well, let me know if you get them. Bobby Wald says that version of Sergeant Slaughter would be a great figure to use to do Sergeant Savage. Yeah, you actually would. I would think, God, what would be a good head? You wouldn't even be able to use this Mercer head for Sergeant Savage. The head might be a little bit flat topped, but we'll pop that head onto Sergeant Slaughter later and see what that looks like. That's like the best one I have handy anyway, and he's already got an extra head. And I'm gonna leave this sneering head on there. That's gonna be my Mercer head, like that sort of Billy Idol thing going on. So I like that. But yeah, we can take that off and set that aside. Then we got this big old knife, big old combat knife. Looks pretty cool with that, doesn't he? So now we can go ahead and put that in the knife sheath. I'm pretty sure this is the knife that's supposed to go with Sarge, and it does fit nice and snugly in that knife sheath. And then the hand cannon, the revolver, the Magnum. It's a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world. There we go. So, and he looks really cool when he's holding it like that. Not so cool when you look at it from the top and you see it's warped. But that should fit nicely into its holster as well. Hopefully I can get it to fit in the holster. It seems like it's maybe a little loose until you get it in all the way. And once I had it in all the way, it seems like the barrel kind of holds it in there. But it does look like the holster is a little big for that. And like I said, this is the same body as Heavy Duty. So Heavy Duty probably came with a different pistol to put in there that actually fits in there a little better. But it fits okay. Like, it's not going to fall out. That's the important thing. All right, so that leaves us with the M16. I'm going to take the suppressor off of it. Because like I said, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to go on the Vector, but it fits in the M16 a little bit better. And there he is with that. So pretty cool. So pretty good Sergeant Slaughter figure. If you don't have any Sergeant Slaughter figures at all, you know, this is probably not a bad one to be your only Sergeant Slaughter figure. Though I figure like most people would probably want to have this one's the more definitive look for him. You know, because that's what he looked like mostly when he showed up on the cartoon. But I still think this is a pretty good look for Sarge as far as the action figures go. I said before that, like, in my mind, this Sergeant Slaughter, like, you know, is kind of its own version of Sergeant Slaughter. He's not really the guy from the wrestling ring, even though I did work in that Iraqi sympathizer angle into my G.I. Joe universe, but technically he's, I don't think, supposed to be that same character. They never mention in the comics or the cartoons anything about him moonlighting with the WWF or anything like that. So all right, so let's move on to Mercer. So we've got Mercer's own knife, which is a much angrier looking knife. It's smaller, but it looks nastier. So we're gonna pull that out, set that aside, and there it is. Okay, so Mercer has his own sunglasses, and they're these kind of yellow, kind of looks like something you use at like the firing range or something like that. And then he's got his own sidearm. He's got an automatic pistol. There we go. I don't know for certain if that's one that's been reused, but it looks familiar to me. I just can't place it right now. I'm pretty sure that's a reuse, although I don't know. Like I said, I don't know for absolute certain. And very carefully, I'm going to remove this suppressor. Lone Dragon says, nah, the Sarge the Joe is a different guy. The wrestler Sarge can't punch out robots or punch holes in walls. Well, that we know of. So I'm going to go ahead and put the suppressor in to the automatic pistol. Now, the original Mercer looks a little droopy there. Let's see if I can turn that around. Problem is sometimes these get a little warped, and it looks like I got it in there good now. Sometimes you just got to find just that right angle to get that in there. The original Mercer figure came with two accessories, which one was a pistol with a suppressor, and the other was a backpack. I think all the Renegades, that was what they came with, was like a pistol with a suppressor and a backpack. That's what it seems like to me. Although I got to be honest, I never had those when I was a kid, so I could be mistaken about that. So this one, I think that this is like a tactical shotgun is actually what this is. So these should be shotgun shells back here. And I want to say that you see John Wick use one of those in the in the John Wick movies. And my Marauder cutter figure, I wound up giving him one of these shotguns because I thought it was really cool looking. So, and shotgun seemed like a good weapon for a Coast Guard guy, I thought. Lone Dragon says, I don't think Wrestler Sarge was ever as built as Joe Sarge. Nah, man, he wasn't even as well built as Action Force Sarge. That guy is cut. Yeah, Sarge was built more like, like the old school wrestlers. They were more built for functionality than show. You know what I mean? Like, they were big dudes, but they weren't really like cut dudes back in the day. That wasn't really like what they were going for necessarily in the old days of wrestling. So it's kind of after Arnold Schwarzenegger became a household name. That was when they started getting more into, like, you see guys like Hulk Hogan and Jesse Ventura, where they were more about the actual, like, being cut. And I'm not saying that, like, that sort of thing never existed in the days before Schwarzenegger, but I am saying it wasn't as common, is what I'm saying. And even into the 80s, you had a lot of dudes who were like just big dudes, not necessarily like muscular dudes. Like you had Hurricane and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Vader and stuff like that. And Lone Dragon says that's called a bullpup where the trigger is in front of the action and mag. Okay, cool. Good to know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, and since I got the extra Mercer head out of here, I'm going to pop it onto Sarge and see what it looks like. And yeah, like, to me, that kind of works as just kind of an instant Sergeant Savage, just right out the box. And they did do a desert camo pattern for Sergeant Savage. So this is something that actually did exist in the figure as well. So they did do a desert Sergeant Savage at one point. But yeah, like, if you wanted to repaint this into like some olive drab and give him like a more period accurate gun, maybe figure out a way to get a little bandage onto his forehead, I think that works as a Sergeant Savage just right out the box. Now, you could probably find a better head than this even. Like, but like I said, this is just one I happen to have handy that I kind of felt like would work. And what do you know? There's Sergeant Savage. All right. So this is a nice head sculpt. And if this was the only head sculpt that came with Mercer, I would be fine with it. I would be like, this is a good Mercer head sculpt. This is a good Mercer head sculpt. Hey, while I'm thinking about it, why don't I just for fun see if the beret will fit on him, see what that looks like. It's a little high because of the hair, but I just wanted to see what it looked like. And the utility cover, we'll check the utility cover also. That one I think looks a little better. And hey, if you want to do a repeater custom, I think that would work really well for a repeater. Again, right out the box. But like I said, this would, I think, be a good Mercer head sculpt, and it is a good Mercer head sculpt. And I'm not trying to talk smack about it, but I am gonna say that I think this one's even better because I like that facial expression on there. So I got all the accessories out except for the hands now, and I don't really feel like getting into the hands. I've already been talking for like 40 minutes, and I've got a whole nother figure to get through. And man, Mercer is just super deep in this package. So it looks like to me, and this is appropriate, it looks like to me that these pants are Viper pants. They're reused from the Vipers. And it probably is his actual Viper pants, because he used to be a Viper. And then, yeah, there's those tattoos on the back. He's got like a skull with a spider web around it on his elbow. And spider webs, not always, not anymore, but especially back in the day, spider webs would often be like prison tattoos, and every ring of the spider web would represent another year that you were in the clink, in the joint, in the slammer. So yeah, Mercer probably did some time, is what I'm saying. But that makes sense to me. He's the guy who led a rough life, and maybe Cobra actually got him out of jail so he could join up, and that was how he became a Viper in the first place. But maybe seeing the kind of nasty things Cobra did made him turn against them, and then he decided it was time for a change and wound up joining the G.I. Joe team. Always have him over here, Shockwave. So we can see check the height next to an average G.I. Joe figure. And you can see he does stand just a little bit taller than Shockwave, but that could just be the hair, right? So the Who's Gal, yes, exactly. The Cooler. And he's about the same height as Rock and Roll, which I kind of feel like Rock and Roll is a character that, like, they make this figure not quite as tall as, say, like Gung Ho or Roadblock, but still like a little bit taller than your average G.I. Joe character. And since I do still have Storm Shadow over here, we can see him next to Storm Shadow. And Storm Shadow seems like he's a little bit taller, but I think that's just because of his hood. But yeah, so there's some comparisons in terms of height to that. A lot of people said they felt like Mercer should be taller, and who am I to argue? I would be fine with Mercer being taller, but he doesn't necessarily have to be, as far as I'm concerned. Lone Dragon says, always good to have pants to cover up your Viper. Yeah. To cover up your trouser, Snake! Those are some nice looking trousers. Oh, man. So he's got this vest, which is a soft rubber piece, and he does seem to have, I can't tell because I can't see under here. I'm guessing this is the same torso that we've seen before on Zartan and Dr. Mindbender and Quick Kick, the same bare torso that he has underneath that. It does kind of hinder the articulation somewhat, this vest, but not as much as you might think. And it's definitely, like, to me, like, that's an 80s style G.I. Joe figure vest right there. And like I said before, it does remind me, it's not identical to what the Vipers wore, but it does remind me of the Vipers. And I think that's kind of what they're going for, like a uniform that it's not exactly a Viper uniform, but it's kind of reminiscent of it because it reflects his past. And again, I'll point out the insignia on there, the Cobra with the slash mark over it. In the cartoon, for whatever reason, that Cobra was not drawn to look like the actual Cobra emblem. It was drawn to look like just kind of a generic drawing of a Cobra with the slash over it. And I always thought they should have made it look more like the regular Cobra emblem. And apparently, somebody at Hasbro agreed with me. Bobby Wald says, I love that episode from Robot Chicken about fumbles. Yeah, like years and years ago, before they actually made Torpedo, I was working on I finished it. I made my own custom Torpedo figure, and I made it out of like one of the movie Snake Eyes that you get for cheap at Ollie's, or that you used to get for cheap at Ollie's. And before I painted all the gray stuff on there, I realized I accidentally made a Fumbles custom. Maybe I'll dig that old custom out and repaint all of it black, and then I'll have my own, my own Fumbles custom. But let's go ahead and talk about his articulation. So Mercer can look up about that far, look down that far, tilts his head kind of quickly from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Again, it's got the extra joint at the bottom, like G.I. Joe classified figures tend to have. Arms rotate all the way around at the shoulder. Got the butterfly joint, move back about that far, raise up to the sides about that far. Got the bicep swivel, bicep swivels around. Worst code name, they called him Pedo for short. Ooh, yikes. We definitely don't like that. Got double jointed elbows. That's about how far the elbows bend. it does kind of bump into this wrist guard here, which the wrist guard does seem to be a separate piece that rotates around. It doesn't look exactly like the Viper wrist guard, which would have made sense to me, but whatever. And then the wrists rotate all the way around, and the right wrist has a horizontal or a vertical hinge on it. The left wrist rotates all the way around, and it has a horizontal hinge on it. I say that wrist guard got in the way, but even on this side, it doesn't seem like he gets like the full range of motion that you could potentially get out of a double jointed elbow like that. And like I said, he's got the I can feel it ratcheting under there, and you can see it bends. He's got that hinge in the torso there, and then the torso rotates all the way around. Again, that wobble, but it's a ball in a socket, not an O-ring. Mercer can kick up about that far. He's got thigh cuts. The thigh rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. He's got the boot cuts. The boot rotates all the way around. Foot points down about that far. Foot points up. If I could get it at the right angle. Foot points up about that far, and then rotates all the way around where the foot meets the ankle. So let's talk about some of these accessories now. And it does not seem to be any place to store the suppressor. So I'm guessing you're going to want to keep the suppressor on the pistol when you put it in the holster. But first, let's see what he looks like when he's holding it. And like I said, the original Mercer figure, that would have been his only weapon. He didn't come with any kind of rifles at all. So having him come with some extra weapons now, that's a good thing. So we'll get into that in a minute. All right, so let's go ahead and put this into the holster on the vest, because that's clearly where that's supposed to go. And when I try to do that, it kind of bends up the suppressor a little bit. So I'm guessing you're not supposed to keep that on there. But I don't see anywhere else to store this suppressor. I don't see a loop on his belt or on the side of the... A lot of the times I'll have a little loop on the side of the holster so you can store that separately, but it does not look like that's going to be the case. So just try not to lose it. That's what I'm saying. But at least with this case, Mercer comes with some other weapons to use. So and there's the knife. We get a look at him with the knife. Pretty cool. I like that. So there we go. And like I said, it's a nasty looking knife. And he's got a sheath over on his left ankle. And it seems to me like that one kind of slides down a little bit. Seems kind of loose. I might want to actually glue that into place. Just like kind of lightly. Just a couple little drops of super glue. So I can remove it easily if I want to. But it'll hold in place long enough. And then we got this weapon, which to me looks like some kind of pulse rifle or something like that. This looks to me like a lot of the weapons that would have come with G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra figures back in the day. I remember a lot of the Vipers coming with these weapons that look like this. Anyway, the Neo Vipers. But this guy's not a Neo Viper, nor is he a Bill and Ted Viper or a John Wick Viper. Well, I guess that's kind of a John Wick weapon. Or any other Keanu Reeves character as a Viper. He's not a My Own Private Idaho Viper. But that looks pretty cool. I like the look of that. That's pretty badass. And it's got like a little bit of a little, one of these kind of things where it's like that little bit of a foregrip there. You see what I'm talking about? Like right there. Can we get that to get in his hand and look cool? Oh, yeah, that's badass. Look at that. That is cool. I like that. And you see what I'm talking about with that snarl, like that Billy Idol sort of, it's a nice day for a white wedding. Ah. Yeah. He did sound a little bit like Billy Idol in the movie, too. It's probably intentional. But yeah, that's going to be his standard armament for me, I think. As much as I like this shotgun, I think I'm going to give this shotgun to my my custom classified cutter that I did a while back. Since, like I said, it's pretty similar to the one I gave my Marauder version. He looks pretty cool with that too. So that's pretty neat. And that's got a foregrip on it. So let's sometimes these type of guns are hard to get the characters to hold because it has the ammo towards the back. But there he is with that. So that's pretty cool. So Mercer, like I said, I always thought he was the most interesting of all the renegades. Like you had Red Dog, who was kind of like a football player, rugby player, something like that. I don't know. And he was all right. And Torres, who was a former circus acrobat, but a fairly gigantic former circus acrobat, and he was all right. He was a bald dude with a beard, and those guys are usually pretty cool. But Mercer, being that sort of former Cobra Viper, being a member of the enemy who decided to come over and join the side of the Angels, I always thought he was really cool. And he was a character that I kind of figured like, he's one of those where he's not necessarily a good guy. Just because he's on the good guy's side doesn't mean he's a good guy. And he's still got that nasty streak in him. And he's always going to have that nasty streak in him. But at least he's on our side now, right? So yeah, there he is with the backpack. That seems to fit in him fairly well. And I think that's Dusty's backpack again. They tend to use that a lot, don't they? And what did I do with Mercer's glasses? I could have sworn I just had those. They're Sergeant Slaughter's glasses, which if I'm going to lose any of the glasses in this set, I would rather lose Mercer's than Sergeant Slaughter's, because I'm going to tell you right now, he's not getting displayed with those glasses. That's just not going to happen. Yep. I could have sworn I had them just now, and I probably picked something else up and set something else down, and maybe it's under the beret. I got this extra Plastic Man head here, but it's not anywhere near that. Yeah, I don't know what I did with those glasses. Let me, real quick, shine the flashlight around here and see if maybe, there we go. I found them. Sometimes you just need to shed a little light on the subject. Huh? All right, so, but I do want to at least show what he looks like with the glasses for anybody who's wondering. And there's that. And, some people might really like this look and decide that that's how they want to display him. But for me, nah, he doesn't need those. It's nice to have them, but they are unnecessary. And they actually stay on his head pretty well. I think they stay on his head better than Sarge's glasses stay on his head. He doesn't need a hat to hold them on. So anyway, that's it for Sergeant Slaughter and Mercer. A couple of great figures in a set together. And I'm hoping, it seems like the kind of thing Hasbro would do. I'm hoping they have plans to give us Red Dog and Taurus going forward. It seems to me like they would fit into a 2-pack as well. That would be the plan. So, but honestly, Mercer, I kind of feel like is the most popular of those guys anyway. Maybe it's just because, like I said, I like Mercer the best out of those guys. I think he's the one that was the standout. And but Hasbro themselves did make a version 2 Mercer later on in the vintage line. So I'm guessing somebody there thought he had that kind of potential too. But yeah, great figure. I really like this Mercer. I really like the Sergeant Slaughter. Both of them are figures with like a lot of great custom potential. And we talked about some of the custom potential again, right out of the box. Like you could do like a Gung Ho, or you could do like the evil version of Sergeant Slaughter, the Iraqi sympathizer version of Sergeant Slaughter, or you could do Sergeant Savage, or, whatever, So great figure set. Highly recommend it. Next episode, we went into kind of like the darker side of G.I. Joe today with the more sort of Black Ops team with the Renegades. That's kind of how I see them anyway. But next episode, we're going to go a little more Dudley Do Right. We've got Law and Order. Literally, the characters are named Law and Order, and then I have a police officer to open up. So that's going to be it for G.I. Joe Classified this time. But unless I happen to find something today while I'm out, but I kind of doubt that's going to happen, but we'll see. But and then but I'm not still done with G.I. Joe after that, because I've still got those Super 7 reaction figures to open up. And then excuse me. And then I finally want to get onto these Princess Bride figures, I think. And then we'll move on to some other stuff. But yeah, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. YouTube likes when I say like and subscribe, so I like to say like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I like it when you leave comments. Let me know what you think about these figures and the characters in general. And again, another reason to like and subscribe is if you don't want to miss that Law and Order episode. And I don't mean an episode of the show Law and Order, dum 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 dum. But I'm sure we'll make jokes about that when we get on to it. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, because I didn't do an episode yesterday because I was really tired and slept instead. Lone Dragon says, I'm waiting for the Law and Order SVU repaints. Well, you never know with this line. They do like doing repaints, don't they? So yeah, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time. Bye.